Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Good evening, everyone. Fade to Black. Today is Thursday. That's right, Thursday, August 17, 2023. Let's do this, man. Right here, right now. That's my DJ voice. Let's get down to business. I announced on Monday the new Fade to Black t-shirts with artwork from Michael Avon Oming, hand-drawn. Get yours now. The links are below. Help support the show and what we do here and the team and everything else. And I say it nearly every single night. This is not a one-man show. I have writers, I have producers, I have people handling social media and web, and it's just a crazy, amazing staff. So help support what we do here and get yourself an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. The links are below. Tonight, I've been waiting for this show for 10 years. Tonight, Kim Carlsberg is with us. I've called the show tonight A Life of E.T. Contact, and she's got an extraordinary story and background and life, and we are going to go through all of that tonight. Also, Kim will be speaking and appearing at A Stairway to the Stars, our conference in November at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. And you can go and say hello and meet Kim in person and come in and hang out with us. And I'm really looking forward to that. Here's the deal. Graduate of the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. And we're going to get to that in just a second. I have a lot of personal contact and experience with Art Center in Pasadena, and that is a very fascinating part of her story. So we're going to get to that too as well. Commercial photography. She has worked in advertising, portrait photographer, rock and roll, everything that I do, right? Art Center, artwork, photography, music, right? She shot everybody from rock stars to presidents. Her work has appeared on television, in film, Rolling Stone, TV Guide, Time Magazine. She also had a 5-year stretch as the exclusive photographer on the TV series BayWatch. And that right there is a real connection. She was also the first woman to be invited into the Hollywood Camera Union, IATSE. All right, so we'll talk about all of that and much more. She's an international keynote speaker. She's been published in numerous magazines and many articles as a featured guest and History Channel's Ancient Aliens, of course, Coast to Coast AM, and CNN's Inside Man with Morgan Spurlock. Her links are below. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, the one and only Kim Carlsberg. There she is right there. Kim, man, right?
Oh my God, what an introduction.
Here, after what you and I just went through,
yeah.
I think that was pretty smooth. I can hit the ground running, can I?
You did. You did really well. I can't live up to what you just said. So we can just end it now.
It's called being a professional, and just getting it done. And coffee, really good coffee. Okay, there's a lot to discuss tonight, but before we get started, you get the first-time guest disclaimer, which is this. I've been waiting for 10 years to say this. Kim, this is just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. Do you accept?
Oh, absolutely. It's like I feel like your family. And we've never physically met, which astonishes me.
Yeah, I know.
And we've never even done a show. And the last time I talked to you, you said we tried to 10 years ago, and it just didn't come together.
It was one of those things, and we did a little thing, and then life gets in the way, right?
Yes.
And but we have a lot of mutual friends between us that have been very aggressive, trying to get us together, and they finally pulled that off, and we're here, and there you go. So
timing is everything.
I wanted to. Our art center blows my mind, and we're going to start there in just a second. I want to show this. I didn't even show this to you earlier, but I did see it on your website. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. This sits on my coffee table.
Oh, God bless you.
Okay.
That's so endearing to me.
This book, and I want to show it. Let's show the thickness of it. Okay.
It's 3.5 pounds.
It's
3.5 pounds.
This thing is serious. This is my protection against any intruder that comes in the house in the dark. But full color, the printing and the illustrations.
And the black pages are
the black pages.
Fade to black, right?
Right. That's exactly what it is. And so it sits on my coffee table. And when I have company come over, that's the only book on the table, and I watch them pick it up and start thumbing through it, and it has the same impact on everybody. They can't put the book down. So I just wanted to to let you know, right, that this is here, and it's an incredible book. It's a tough book to get, though.
It's very tough to get. There's not many left. And I think what is going to be left of them will be at Stairway to the Stars.
That's one right there. That's worth the ticket of admission right there.
Right? Yeah.
And will you sign mine? Can I bring it to Stairway? Will you sign it for me?
I don't know how much you're going to pay me.
Checks in the mail. And it'll be a good one. But and so I just wanted to share that with you. And
you're always here. My heart, it does. People say that to me, and I just don't get it. It was Adrian. Adrian,
my partner. Yeah.
Yeah. He told me the same thing. He said, "Who contacted him? I don't know if it was Daryl Anka or if it was Stephen Bassett, but somebody contacted him and mentioned my name, and then it was like, oh, do you mean this Kim Carlsberg?" And he went to his coffee table and he pulled it up and he showed the book, and it was my book. And he said, "I've had this book,
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Okay, I've been to his house. He's got a nice place, and it's right there on his coffee table in his living room.
Oh my God!
I swear on a stack of Kim Carlsberg books. So I like everybody else. Started to pick up on your story many, many, many years ago.
Yeah, it started a long time ago.
It started a long time ago, and I, watched a few of your presentations. We're going back a ways now.
No kidding.
And I thought, man, what? We all think, okay. I do want to talk about Art Center in Pasadena because and your history, and we're going to start actually before that, okay, at the beginning. But where was I going? I was going somewhere. I just spaced it.
All right. Well, you want to just kick back? I was going.
Oh no! This is where I was going. Okay. Everybody goes through struggles. Everybody. I've been through mine, and there are times when everybody has, those stories. Like, man, I'm going to use a bad word. Well, it's a good word, but I'm going to use it the wrong way. Everybody goes, Jesus, man, what is this crazy going to stop? You know,
Yeah.
I can't catch a break, right?
Right.
And then you go and you read your story and the background and what you went through, and it's like, well, you know what, my life's not that bad. It's,
Yeah.
Kim, you've been there. You've
Yeah.
you've been there and back, and here you are tonight. So, and we're going to everybody. Yeah. Everybody's wondering what I'm talking about. We'll get into that as far as Kim wants to take it. But when I say something as broad as a life of contact, that's exactly your situation. So let's start at the beginning, and then we'll get to Art Center. There's a reason why I want to bring up Art Center. It's one of my favorite buildings. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
The students
Best
there.
salad bar in the world.
It is probably the most beautiful campus in the country. It's a very unique building and everything else. And the students there are very insanely focused.
Yes.
I'll just leave it.
I have to tell you, when I signed up for Art Center, they didn't know whether to put me in the art department or the photography department, because I had 2 portfolios and they were both, pretty good. And they said, well, what do we do with you? And I said, well, I don't know. And at that moment, it changed my life. It was like, well, artists don't make a lot of money. There's not a lot of, room for artists in the world, but I could be in Timbuktu and be a portrait photographer the rest of my life. I'd always have some security. So I chose the photography department at Art Center. And the thing about Art Center is every instructor has to be a working professional.
Everyone.
Yes. And so I was so blessed to work with, the world's, this is LA, right? The world's, most extraordinary artists and photographers, and but they told me when I signed up, they said, by second semester, if you have a relationship, you won't have it anymore. And that's the truth.
It's true. That is so spot on.
Yes.
That is so spot on. I had my circle of friends in Pasadena when I was there. I was an artist and graphic artist and darkroom stuff and all those things. But my circle of everybody was going to Art Center. And I spent so much time up there. But this is the one thing that blew my mind, and it's a fact. This is not, it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not.
Yeah.
Art Center, one of the things, they're known for a lot, but one of the things that they are known for is their automotive design.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I would venture to guess that every car manufacturer in the world has their design staff graduated from Art Center.
Yes.
And I don't care if it's Japanese, German, American, Indian, I don't care. It doesn't matter. That is the level of student that attends Art Center College of Design. It's an extraordinary institution. So we'll circle back to that. That's a very impressive thing.
Okay.
Okay. So when I say life of contact, for you, where did it start?
Well, it probably started when I was born or before, but I didn't become aware of it. I didn't become conscious of the abductions until I was in my late 20s. My boyfriend and I created BayWatch, right? And so we lived on the beach in Malibu, and we lived in this beautiful historic building with these big arched windows that overlooked the ocean. And I lived there forever. And we had different schedules at that time. And he was a lifeguard, of course, and he was doing Olympics films. And so I was just, a budding photographer, and I was doing any kind of job I could get in LA. And I was working, God bless him, he just died. I was working on Big Top Pee Wee Herman's. Do you remember Big Top? It was like all the wild animals and craziness. And so I was the photographer for that shoot. And, Hollywood, you never get home before 2 a.m. So I'm driving up Pacific Coast Highway to get to my house. And beautiful, clear, gorgeous night. Life was great. I was doing my thing. My boyfriend was doing his thing. We didn't see much of each other, which was probably a good thing. We had our space just because of our careers. And so I got home that night, and he was in bed already. And our home was one huge room. That was it. Everything was connected. Big bedroom in the living room. You know what I mean? It was like one room. And so I was tiptoeing into the house and trying not to wake him. And I have to admit, I went to our little mini bar and I popped a beer. Just popped it. Hadn't even had a sip yet. And I went to this little chair that we had in the living room looking over the coast. And I knew every grain of sand on that beach. I've lived there so long, and it was so much, and I worked on the beach, BayWatch, all this time. So I'm sitting there looking at this lifeguard tower, and I see a light. The light was too low. It was too low to be anything I recognized, and it was too high to be a boat. So it was kind of on that horizon, but I couldn't identify it. For the first time in my life, all the years that I lived on the beach in Malibu, there's this thing out there that I can't identify. And at that moment, it just went boom, boom, psh, 1 second across the Santa Monica Bay from Palos Verdes, the south end, to Point Dume, the north end. I don't know, probably 40 miles at least. In an instant. I was like, whoa, what was that? And at that time, Johnny Carson owned the house on the end of Point Dume. So this thing stops and it hovers over Johnny Carson's house. And I'm thinking, I'm not hallucinating. I haven't even had a sip of my beer yet. And, what is this? And what do I do with this information? And then it went boom, boom, zip, zip. It went from Johnny Carson's house to, I don't know. My house was on Pacific Coast Highway. And then there was the beach. And it just came right up. I don't know how many, feet there are to a Pacific Coast Highway, but I think each lane is like 8 feet, probably. So do that by 4, and it's just hovering over the sand. And I noticed, I called it the moon over Malibu. I noticed it was this huge orb, this light, and it came to see me. And I'm like, uh-oh, what, right? So I did notice 2 forms. I could see the outline of a couple of beings. I couldn't see the details, but now I know for sure they were like grays, big head, no hair, no nothing. And I sat there for just looking at this thing hanging over the ocean in front of my house. And then I don't know if I had missing time, Jimmy. I don't. It was like all of a sudden this thing goes boom, boom. And it went out into the universe. I mean, it was just gone. And so I'm like, well, I knew I couldn't get my boyfriend to the window quickly enough to see it because of how quickly it moved, right? So I didn't even think about it. So what do you do with that? I'm a career woman. I have to get up at 6 and go to the set and this and that. And there was nothing I could do with that information. 2 weeks later, I woke up and I was in an elevator. I thought was an elevator, and I was paralyzed. And my old boyfriend, who's also a photographer, was to my left. and he was paralyzed completely. I could move my eyes back and forth. So I kept straining to see him. And I could see that he couldn't see anything. He was just gone, bonkers gone, paralyzed, unconscious. And I got my first telepathic information. I knew there was a woman standing next to him. I couldn't see her, but I was getting this telepathic information about her, that she was a makeup artist. And I could see her in my mind. She was pale, had, gorgeous hair like you. And then the next thing I know, the elevator opens up into a reality that changed my life forever. So
That's the NSA saying no more talking to Jimmy Church. It's a text.
yeah, no kidding.
Usually it comes in right about now during every show. The okay, so let's pin that to the wall for a second.
Sure.
The 2-week gap,
Yes.
right, between the elevator and the orb with the beings in it.
Yes.
Are you thinking to yourself, this is before the elevator,
Right.
I'm losing my mind? There was no way that was real. Or were you approaching it differently? What was your mindset at that time?
I was numb.
Yeah.
I was just numb. What's going on? I knew the two events were related. It was like that orb and me being in this elevator were related. And so it was at that point, I was pushed into a room with hundreds of little tables with unconscious human beings on these tables. And these, I called them the Pillsbury Doughboys. I didn't know what a gray was. And actually they weren't gray, they were off-white. So here's hundreds of human beings unconscious on tables, and these little Pillsbury Doughboys are running around doing things to them. And I was like, oh my God, they're all dead. And I'm next. And I started, and I'm not a girly girl. I mean, I had 2 brothers and went to art center. I was the first woman in the cameraman's union. So I'm not a girly girl. I never screamed in my life. That moment, I screamed so much. I couldn't even comprehend it was me screaming. The fear was so great. And so I just knew I was going to be on one of those tables as a cadaver, right? And at that point, I saw 2 9-foot tall beams of light. That's all I can say. They were translucent. They looked like waterfalls of light, and they were conscious, but they were not communicating with me. They were just letting me know they were there. At that point, I saw 2, what we now know are the Greys, taller Greys, standing next to me. And because of my craziness and screaming, one walked up to me and slapped me on the back of the neck. And I think it was probably holding a needle, because within a few seconds, I passed out.
Now, at this point, myself and most that are listening right now are going to ask the same question. Okay. Was this a physical experience?
Yes.
This was physical. This wasn't astral, vivid dream.
Not astral. It was absolutely physical.
What did you? And I always say I'm not trying to be cavalier, but it's an honest question. Were there any sensations of smell?
Yes.
and let's go there first.
Okay.
We're all humans, right? You walk into a situation like that, you're going to sniff. What did it smell like?
Actually, I didn't notice any smell after the elevator door opened. While I was in the elevator, it smelled like rotting organic material. That's the only way I can just describe it. And I knew that these beings so I'm facing this elevator door that's going to open. I know there are the beings are behind me, getting ready to push me through this door, and I knew the smell was coming from them. So, stinky.
They don't use deodorant. I remember I asked Travis Walton once.
Oh,
yeah, he's great. Did you hear about Lee Spiegel? He passed away last night.
Oh no!
Lee Spiegel. Yeah,
Oh.
left this earth. He's now got the answers. Yeah, that was tragic news. I got it earlier today. But anyway, the knowledge of this, because this is physical. You know, you're going through this, and then you get knocked out. You don't know how, but I think that's a pretty good assumption that.
Well, the slap in the back of my neck.
Right.
He had to have injected me with something.
What and what happened next? I've got a couple of other questions. I need to go backwards, but right now, what happened next? When you opened your eyes?
Yeah, when I opened my eyes, I was in like this little cave room, no lights on, and I'm sitting on a table, and there's a little gray alien sitting on a stool beside me. It wasn't saying anything. It wasn't doing anything. It was like it was waiting for further instruction. And I'm sitting on this table going, you know what? And, being an artist photographer, lighting is my thing, right? So there was an arched doorway. The room beyond the arched doorway was lit, okay? So when this being walked into the doorway, it was backlit, and the light was coming through its hair. It turned out I could tell, not by the body, by the energy, it was female. And I was thinking, oh my God, this poor being is going through radiation treatment and it's dying of cancer, by the hair. The hair was just so like somebody going through radiation, And I looked at it, and I'm still panicked. And I look at this being, and I realize communication is now telepathic. And so it didn't matter. I said it out loud, but she returned telepathy to me. I said, "You're a female. How can you see this happening to me and not help?" And she telepathically responded, "Why don't you stop being such a big baby, and this will be over with soon enough?" So yeah, and I was like, okay. It really shocked me out of my fear. Maybe that was her intention. It just threw me into another thing.
Where were you before the elevator?
I was in bed with my boyfriend.
You were in bed, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah. They always came between 3 and 3:30.
Between 3 and 3:30.
Yeah.
And at that moment, this is before the elevator. This is the first trip. Did anything happen? Was there a light in the room? Was there any warning that you were about to go on a journey? No. So you were just sleeping.
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay, so did you stop being a baby? Did you
I did.
Face the music, so to speak?
Yeah, it worked. That just snapped me out of, oh my God, this is real. I have to bring myself around to try to understand what's happening. So, it worked. Next thing I know, I'm back in my bed. And that was the beginning of at least 8 years of conscious contact, 2 to 3 times a week. And I stayed awake. I stayed awake for 8 years. I'm still awake. I can't sleep. Sleeping is like, I can't do it. PTSD. And so, when I realized what was happening, they wanted my DNA. I was a cute little thing back there. I was perfectly healthy, and they liked my DNA and they liked my eggs, and they continued to abduct me for 8 years, taking my eggs, creating these hybrid children, bringing me back on the ships, planets, whatever, to help raise these children, because they're half human or 10% human or 90% human, whatever their combination was, the flavor of the month. And, they would just say, these children need love and care, and, you're the mother, you have to do it. So I would be taken, and I would be taken into these rooms, and I remember, reading books, children's books to them, and, playing games. And when they decided it was enough, they just took me back. I never had control over any of the amount of time that I could spend with them, but I always knew it was going to happen in a couple of days. And I always fought it. I learned how to fight it. And I fought and fought and fought. And if I fought one night, they gave up. And if I fought they would come back the next night. They never gave up. If they couldn't abduct me one night, they would come back the next night. And I continued to fight and just stayed awake. Was really, they can't take you if you're awake. That part of your brain is functioning, and they won't take you. And I think a lot of it is probably, like Travis, that I fought, like I said, I'm not a girly girl. I had brothers, and, I fought every time, but they still.
Well, you know what the good news is? You still look great. So you got that going. You got that going for you.
But I want your hair.
Yeah, right. Now, that first night, what did they do? What were the procedures? Do you remember?
Not that first night, but Jimmy, I've had hundreds of abductions.
Right. Well, but there's a reason. There's a reason why I'm asking. Okay, so that first night, nothing to report. The reason why I'm asking, is you've got to wake up the next day and look at your boyfriend. Right? Yeah.
Oh boy.
Right. That's the deal.
I've always been metaphysical anyway, but
right.
He grew up in a Catholic family, and there was no way he was going to rock this. Yeah, it was tough.
Okay, so what happened? You wake up in the morning, and I got to tell. Okay, I'm going to make this. The show's not about me; it's about you. But I want to make one comment. I had one experience with something in my bedroom. I was single at the time. Same thing. I could only move my eyes. Right.
Uh-oh.
Okay. No. Let's stop right there. I don't know.
I know.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say it, but I'll say this. For the next 10 years, every light in my house was turned on. I slept with the TV on.
Yes.
Every light, except for when my daughter was over in her bedroom. She's 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, whatever, 5 years old.
Yeah.
That light was off so she could go to bed. But other than that, and my house was lit up. Yeah. It was a terrifying thing for me to go through. And I don't think I told anybody. I talk about it now. Yeah. But during that 10-year stretch or whatever, I didn't have anybody. And this is pointed at you. I have always researched the UFO subject since I was a little kid. So I amassed a collection of videos, of magazines, of books, and things. Yeah. But I kept it hidden.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't want people coming over to my house looking at a stack of UFO magazines. Right, or a bunch of Stanton Friedman videos. I didn't, no. So I kept that stuff hidden, and I didn't have somebody in my circle that I could feel comfortable enough to talk to.
Sure.
So I understand. So that next morning, after that experience, the first day, did you talk to your boyfriend?
Oh God, no.
Exactly.
Oh God, no.
How long?
I got up, I went into the shower, and I think my quote in my first book was, I stood under the water watching my life wash away down the drain. I knew I would never be the same. I didn't know if I would ever comprehend what had happened to me. And I certainly didn't think it was going to last most of my life. So it was, I didn't talk to anybody for years because I didn't know anybody who even knew anything about this. I had never even heard of it. And then I was, oh my God, what was his name? Sweet guy. Turns out I was on a shoot, not BayWatch. I was on another shoot. And I'd been working with this guy. It turns out that we were both born in Kansas City. And so we connected, the producer and I connected, right away. And so he knew me. You work with somebody every day for 5 days or whatever. You get to know people on the set. And then I had an abduction. And I went into work, and he looked at me and he said, "What happened?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "You look like hell." And I said, "Oh, sorry about that." And he goes, "No, you have to tell me what happened." And he took me over to the corner of the set, and I said, "I don't know. I had this dream. that these beings came and they took me away and did these things to me." And his face went white. And he said, "Kim, that wasn't a dream. It's called alien abduction." I said, "What are you talking about? Alien abduction? I just had a bad dream and I didn't get any sleep and I look like hell. I'm sorry." He goes, "No, Kim, you're being abducted." And I said, "Well, how would you know about this stuff?" And he said, "Because my roommate is an abductee." And I was like, "Oh my God, no, this is real." Then I realized this is real, And that was, the beginning, the beginning of 8 years of continuous contact.
Let's go to the second experience. So okay, so we have the orb. Oh, by the way, I'm writing as I'm taking notes here. Did you start to learn about the amount of contact and sightings on PCH between, Marina Del Rey and Zuma Beach and everything that's been going on out there? President, then Governor Reagan had his famous sighting there on PCH.
You know what? I photographed Reagan in his office alone. He had 2 bodyguards at the front door. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's okay.
Yeah. So there were his office in Century City. I was hired to photograph him, and he was. It was right before they announced that he had dementia. And I was, at that point in my life, all I wanted to do was aid disclosure. And I figured, oh my God, I have the opportunity to photograph Reagan, and I'm going to download him with all this information and insist that he, assist disclosure, And unfortunately, he was so sweet and so kind and so fragile that by the end of the shoot, I couldn't do it. I couldn't put that on him. And, but I did have the opportunity, but I didn't take it. It wasn't worth it. I really thought he would die of a heart attack if I brought up the subject. So that was my Reagan story.
When did today there is I've done a lot of interviews, I've done a few movies and things about hybridization and those programs and the possibility of this, on a mass scale. And when I interview contactees and people with these types of experiences, what has impressed me the most is that, by and large, just a professional person, just a normal, just everything the opposite of what the perception is of
Right.
who an abductee is.
Right.
It's not what you think.
It's not.
And so, at what point did you start to put this together, that this was a seeding issue, this was a DNA issue, this was a sexual issue, this was a hybrid program issue? That must have come as a shock.
Well, yeah, but there was a lot more to it than just that. I had, like I said, I've had literally hundreds of abductions, but there were a couple that I couldn't remember them. I couldn't remember the whole picture, and I was going crazy. And I contacted Yvonne Smith.
Mm-hmm.
You know Yvonne?
I know her well, yeah.
Yeah, God bless her soul. Wow, she saved my life. And I contacted her and I said, I'm having all these experiences and I don't know what to make of them. And she said, you know what, Kim? I will work with you because I get so many people coming to me wanting to dig up memories that aren't real. They want to be abducted. They want to know that they're an abductee. And I'm like, who would want that? And she said, you'd be surprised. She said, but I can tell you are actually, being taken on a consistent basis. And I said, well, there's a couple things I just can't. I'm starting to understand what they're doing. I'm starting to understand the agenda, but I can't bring up these memories. And she said, okay. She goes, once you work with me, all of a sudden your life is going to make sense. Things you never even understood will fall together like, puzzle pieces. And I was like, okay. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I said, I just want to know what happened on that night on that table. And, she took me back and I realized it was the first time they had implanted me with an alien fetus. And I was on a table and there were 4 grays around me and they were holding a jar with this little fetus in it. And they were telling me telepathically that they were going to put it in my body. Nothing I could do about it. And so that was the most traumatic moment of my life. And my mind blanked it out. It didn't blank out all the other alien experiences, but that one was the biggie. And so when I got through that, I mean, I had to throw, she tapes the sessions. I had to throw the tape away. I was crying like a 2-year-old for my mommy. Mommy, help me. I mean, it made me sick. So then I realized that was what was going on. That's what my life was for them. And then things started falling into place. I started remembering things, that when I was a little kid, I remember I was crossing the street after school one day, and it was a pretty busy street, and I was going home, and this car pulls up and screeches to a halt, and it came out of nowhere. There was no one else around, no other cars on the street, and it came to a screeching halt, and this woman was giving me this evil eye, and there were like 5 kids in this car, and she followed me home. Every inch. She stayed beside me, staring at me. And I never forgot it. And then she disappeared. Sorry, excuse me. I don't know how to make you shut up. Then after, and I had a lot of experiences like that made no sense. So she followed me home and then she disappeared. Oh, no, she stopped me. and said, "Look what you did. Look what you did." I'm sorry, Jimmy. I didn't think to. We're so busy with the other technical problems. We didn't
Yeah.
think to turn off the phone. But she stalked me almost to my house and said, "Look what you did. Look what you did to my child." And the child has like blood coming off its teeth, like it had hit the dashboard when she had to stop for me being in the street. And how horrible are you? How terrible are you that you did this to my child? And I'm thinking, oh, what is this? And I ran up to my front door and I turned around and she was gone. So, it's like they're always exploring our emotionality. They're always exploring how we think, how we react, because the hybrid children are half human and they have to understand us. And I don't know, we don't even understand ourselves, but, So, yeah, a lot of those things happened to me growing up that really started to make sense after I met Yvonne. And yeah.
Did you feel pregnant?
Well, I have to tell you, I was always a little petite thing. I was always very athletic. And these when you're petite and athletic, women don't have cycles. I didn't have a cycle for a year. It was awesome, So I don't know that I felt pregnant maybe a couple times, but most of the time I didn't. So.
And how long did you carry the fetus? And in that, and typically, because I've heard different ranges, but it's never a long time.
No, it's only a few months.
Yeah, a few months, right? So you were never.
As soon as you start to suspect you're pregnant, or you're starting to show at all, they take it. They take it away.
Would you? Please excuse me, but I have to know. So did you wake up the next day and go, "Wow, I'm slim and trim. I guess I didn't eat much yesterday." Did you have these kind of reactions where you could see yourself physically changing? And did anybody else notice?
No.
Yeah.
No, I was just too busy being the BayWatch photographer. I didn't even have time to think about these things that were happening. It was just, something would happen, and I just knew there was nothing I could do about it. I just had to live with it, and I had to go on with my life. So I spent a couple of years never talking about it, and because I was gathering the information and the experiences to get to the truth. And then when I finally got to the point where I figured it out, I started speaking out, and that was it.
Yeah, can you mute your phone? Can you turn that thing off?
I'm trying to. I just
There's a little switch on the side. Just click that baby down.
Emergency call. So I'm just turn it off again.
Okay.
I'm going to stick it under the mattress.
You gotta love live radio. So did you as you're going through this with Yvonne, did you become part of her group?
I went there a few times.
And what was that like, to be around other people where you could just speak freely and listen to other people's experiences?
I can't tell you the real truth about that. I don't want to insult anyone who's going through that kind of experience, but I could not connect with those people. It was like, I think I already knew way more than any of them. And,
right.
And it was like, okay, there's no use for me to be here. So I just went to a few sessions and then moved on.
Right. I've asked Yvonne to let me go. She's like, "Nope, you're not an experiencer. Can't. No. I'm like, "Oh, let me hang out once." No, she won't let me. So. I love her to death.
I can't believe she made it so long. Seriously. I mean, this woman has done the long haul.
Yeah, she's amazing. I love her to death, and her son is really cool too as well.
I love him the most.
Yeah,
he's so sweet.
I don't want to say that to Yvonne. I might have let that slip. Your son might be cooler than you, Yvonne.
He is. I love Yvonne. She saved my life. But that boy is incredible. He has to be a hybrid.
He glows, by the way. He glows.
He does.
He glows. We went out to dinner, and I don't want this to sound weird or strange, right? But we went out to dinner somewhere in the United States. We're out somewhere, and not here in LA. We're off doing something, and we go out to dinner, and we're sitting there. He's sitting across from me, caddy corner on the other side of the table, and I'm sitting there. I'm looking at him, and I'm like, this dude is perfect. Right?
He is.
He's like Elvis perfect, right?
He has a way of drawing you in.
Yeah.
He drew me in, and I couldn't let go. It just, amazing.
He's amazing. And that's it. Let's let that go. But I just remembered, I was sitting there, and I'm like, he's like perfect. He's like a Michelangelo statue, you know.
He's
amazing.
My heart chakra is expanding just talking about him.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. I just I saw some pictures of him the other day. He's out doing something around the world. I'm like, man, that's just a cool dude. So but the reason why I'm bringing up the group, you can talk to Yvonne. You're doing sessions, but what about your circle and your friends and family? That's the other important component with any contactee or experiencer. Did they know what was going on, and were you able to start to open up?
I was not close to my family. My dad died when I was really young. My brothers, I was born in Kansas City, and then I moved to LA and lived there for 40 years, and I had no contact with my brothers. And my mom, I tried to be a good daughter and call her once a week for 40 years. But I was downloading them with information all those years. And my mom never got it. She said, honey, you moved to Hollywood and your brain got filled with all these fantasy stories. This isn't real. This is just like Hollywood. It's like, oh my God, Mom. No, this is real stuff. And eventually my younger brother, who's now dead, started to believe me. I bet it took decades. And so, but they're all gone. The main disruption was with my boyfriend, on BayWatch. He was Catholic. He didn't get it. He didn't want to get it. And he was embarrassed by it. When I finally did come out, I remember we were shooting at Malibu High School one day. And I showed up, and I'm late because I was abducted the night before. I looked like hell. And I walked on the set, and it was the first time he ever acknowledged that I was being taken. And he looked at me, and he said, they came for you last night, didn't they? And I was like, oh my God. He believes it. He believes it. And then he turns around, the crews in Hollywood, you get your best friends working on your crew, right? So he turned around and he looked at the cameraman. And as a still photographer, I had to sit right underneath the main camera back in the day, right? So the big camera, the movie camera is over my head, and I'm tucked down there just waiting to get the shot. And he turned around and he looked at his friend, the cameraman, and he says, my girlfriend thinks she's being abducted by aliens. What do you think of that? And there was one moment in my life, my life could have taken another turn. The guy said, I want to smoke what she's smoking. And then he turned off. That was it. if that guy had said, well, that's interesting, if he had said anything but that, I might still be with him, you know. But it was one of those, he was so embarrassed and not believing, and you know, that was it. So that was, as far as relationships go, that was a biggie. But then again, I did meet Daryl Anka. Do you know Daryl?
I know Daryl well.
Yeah, Daryl's my best bud, and we kind of grew up together. He didn't know a lot about abduction when I met him, and I didn't know a lot about it, but we clicked, and we discovered it together. And so, you know, Bashar, he channels this entity by the name of Bashar, who's one of my great loves as well. And it was so, all that I lost, I did lose a lot by coming out. But I've gained so many amazing friends like you, right? I mean, how would I have ever known you, or, you know, any of these hundreds of amazing abductees and contactees and researchers around the world? Oh my God, I have my heart, here it goes. I've started doing a photographic book in, I think it was 2012. And I was going to photograph all the people. I called it The Faces. The faces behind disclosure, I think. And so I started photographing all these amazing people. And do you know now, just like 10 years later, half of them are dead. You know? So I don't know that I might still publish the book. I'll just have to, you know, say here's who's left. You know, because the field isn't as strong as it was back then, because I think there's so much information out there. People aren't like clawing to get to it. We were all clawing to get to the information back then. And yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. And it's also like it's a double-edged sword, though, because we had to struggle, fight, claw, and crawl our way to the information, and no internet, nothing like that. And,
no internet.
And the first thing I did, the first search word I did when I got online in 1994 or 93, whenever that was, I did not type in porn. I typed in UFO. That's what I did, man. That was my first. That was my first search term. And
you know, I think UFO is still like the number one or number two on the internet in search engines.
Yeah, it's the number one search term on FBI.gov, right?
Oh my God.
Number one. The most visited page is their UFO section. There, but we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, I'm going to set up for when we come back. But with everything that is happening today, the double-edged sword that I was referring to is that the younger generation, they have been exposed to this phenomena differently than when we were younger.
Yes.
And I don't think that there is any issues with acceptance of the idea.
I don't think so either. I think
completely different DNA. Yeah. I mean, they've grown up with not only the internet and social media, but the movies and the TV series and the information. It's they look at it differently than we did growing up, where we would hide it and not talk about it, and the ridicule and the government calling us crazy and everything else. Well, nobody wanted a part of that. Today, it's not that kind of party.
Thank God.
I think the research is a bit different. And one of the things that we're going to talk about when we come back is, where are they coming from? And what have you learned? So we'll do all of that. Our guest tonight, Kim Carlsberg. I'm Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip, as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, with live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Beckley Teppy. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Okay, welcome back. I'm sorry. I was texting and reading email, and there you go. Little delay. Our guest tonight, Kim Carlsberg. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And with everything, Kim, that is going on today with, Congress and hearings and disclosure and the media and this stuff getting out front. One of the questions, we know that the universe is a big place, but the question that is on the front of everybody's mind, what's that?
Multiverse.
Yeah, multiverse. Yeah, certainly. Where are they coming from? Were you able to get that information and find out, where they're coming from? Where do they exist?
Yeah. I got a little bit of information, and what was astounding to me is I didn't know about Betty and Barney Hill. I didn't know anything about abduction until it happened to me. I'd never heard the word. And then I was taken one night And this is hysterical. They said to me, Z, Z-E, Z-E-T-A, Z-E-T-A-R. And they spelled out, it took them like 10 minutes to spell out Zeta Reticuli. And that's because I had been taken there. And they were telling me where I had been taken. And I've been taken off planet a few times. I don't know, the Zeta Reticuli, I don't know what that is. But then I learned about Betty and Barney Hill. And I thought, oh my God. They're talking, they showed them Zeta Reticuli on a map, right? And and then years later, I'm being abducted and told that I'm on Zeta Reticuli. And I'm like, oh, well, that means nothing. And then I read about Betty and Barney Hill. And the places I was taken, a couple of different, it's so vast. It's, multidimensional. Like I said, I know when I go with them, I'm going into another dimension of reality. It's just, you feel it, it's not our dimension. And so, and the first couple times it was very confusing, but when they took me there so many times, I started adapting to their reality, their dimension. And the physical places they took me, of course, were on ships, motherships. They took me into laboratories, and but the planets were, the ones that I remember were very Arizona-like. Red planet, red dirt, no trees, no nature, just an orange Arizona-like planet. So that's what I remember the most. That's it.
That is so interesting. And I want you to expand on that interdimensional feeling.
Yeah.
Because it can't be, I don't know. Okay, I'm not speaking from an experience or point of view, but our existence here is because of 365 days around the sun. We've got a moon. We've got our time and our timeline. And the way that we exist is because of where we are in space time and in relation to everything else around us.
Right.
But any other species, their time or their the frequency that they operate on I can't believe that it would be the same as ours, that we would be in focus, that we would see that, you know what I mean? That they would vibrate on a different, because they're from another place.
Another place.
Right? And,
yes,
and
yes.
that would have to be, so the interdimensional aspect of this, and I think physics is talking about this more and more today, but that would have to be it. And that would explain why we may not be able to necessarily see or hear or feel or detect them unless we were brought into their time and space. So we would feel the difference. And I think that's an interesting observation that you're making there. What did that feel like going into that shift?
Well, I used to tell people I'm a diver. And I used to say, if you're on land, you're on land. You can feel the air, you can feel the earth. And I said, but when you go underwater, it's not the same reality. It's just not. And I said, so imagine you go to bed one night, you're in physical reality, and you wake up and you're underwater. You can't breathe. You can feel the density around you of the water that is not like air. And so there are all these clues that this is not the same dimension. And like I said in the beginning, it was really weird. I mean, completely weird. But as time went on, after so many abductions, I acclimated to their dimension. And they didn't like that, because that's when I started being myself. And
Well,
that's
what was weird about it?
I don't know. You go to bed and you wake up underwater in a bathtub. That's not weird?
No. That's not what I'm asking.
Oh,
No, I mean, what was weird about it? Like, was it a tingling? Was it a physical sensation? Was your breathing different? Did times feel like it slowed down or sped? Or what? That's what I'm saying. What was weird about it? What was the tip off?
all of it. I mean, yeah, I was aware it was my body. I had sensations like, being on Earth. But like I said, the density, the air, which was different, it's just different. I mean, I can't describe it. There's I don't know. I had an experience, and this is interesting because Yvonne had it in her book Chosen, where they actually. Do you remember the movie where they took the girl was underwater? They were under the ocean, and what was that movie? It was so great. She had to hold her breath and go through something to save everybody, and she breathed in the water. She had to learn how to breathe in the water, and the ETs, I guess, helped her with the physicality of it. And so I was taken by the ETs many times and put underwater and made to breathe the water in. And when that happened, I would leave my body. And it turned out I didn't know if I was in a tank or under the ocean, but I was underwater and I was terrified to breathe. I thought I was dying. And this happened over and over and over again, but they wiped the memory. So every time it happened, it was a new experience. It was a new fear. Oh my God, I'm underwater. I have to breathe. And when I took the water into my lungs, I left my body and I was hovering over it. So it's, I ended up going to, Ventura College to a diving class to just try to get over my fear of being underwater. And so when I signed up for the class, this guy's like 400 pounds. He teaches Navy SEALs in Alaska underwater, under ice water, how to dive. And I said, okay, I'm, Ventura College, it's college kids, they're young. And I walk into this class and I'm one of the older ones. And I said, I'm going to be the hardest student you've ever taught. And I handed him my book. And, the next week was Wednesday night class or something. I walked in expecting him, to just say, leave. And he said, you're no problem. I teach Navy SEALs under the ice in Alaska. You think aliens are gonna scare me? And he worked with me and got me over my fear of being underwater, and that was huge. So I know this isn't like doing a linear conversation here, but because there's just so much involved, but you just get used to being uncomfortable in places you don't understand. And then if they keep taking you, you eventually get it. Eventually. But it took me many, many years.
What is there's three things I want to get to. How are they getting from there to here and back?
Okay, stop there.
Okay.
I can't do three questions at once. I absolutely know they're interdimensional. And, when we see, I had a UFO tour company in Sedona for 4 years. I had like 5 pair of, military goggles, $15,000 each. I would take people out every night. We would see at least 75 UFOs a night. It was amazing. But, when people see UFOs now, they're there 1 minute and they're gone the next. Where are they going? They're popping through dimensions. Here now, gone now. They're not doing that through the physics that we understand. They just go from one dimension to another. And I had an interesting conversation. I've been working on a movie. That's why I'm here in LA, preparing for Contact. And the woman said that was interviewing me said, well, do you know why you were taken? Because I was taken through walls, right? Always taken through the wall. They would pick me up. I'd go through a wall or the ceiling or the floor. Physical reality didn't matter. And she said, she's interviewed a lot of other contactees. And she said one of the ETs told them, or somebody told them, the way they did it is they actually went back in time to a time where the wall didn't exist. And that's how you can move through it. That's pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
When you go through years of research, and I had a different way of looking at things 40 years ago. I'm going to be 60 in a month or two. And so, I'm back in my 20s. We all did the same thing. And so did everybody had a vision because we didn't understand what we understand today. But
sure.
We all imagined, little green men in a flying saucer,
Where did the green come from?
Yeah, well, and so it's some physical craft traveling, at the speed of light for 10,000 years across whatever.
Yeah.
And the impossibility of how that sounded. It just how would they live that long? The food, everything comes into play, right? And we've tried to answer and tried to figure out how we would do it if we were going the other way, right?
Yeah.
We'd sleep it off or whatever. But we've tried to overcome that. But what I see today versus, I'm talking about with my eyes,
yeah,
versus past experiences and other witnesses, is that I see stuff appear and disappear in front of my eyes. And that's the part where I scratch my head. All right, that's got an interdimensional aspect to it. Or is it that they are always there and they're just coming in for an instant into our frequency, our light spectrum?
I don't think we're interesting enough for them to be here all the time. I mean, Jimmy, if you were an ET and you could go anywhere at any time, would you spend much time here?
It depends if I was, it depends if I was checking out shows like this or the Kardashians. And if it was the Kardashians, there's no reason. Yeah, there's no reason. If that's what's representing planet Earth, nothing to see here. But there's some interesting parts to it too. If we flip it around and go the other direction, let's say that we had the ability to go to another planet. Yeah. And sure we do. Right. And we discover a civilization that is, say, 100 years behind us right now.
Yeah.
200 years, covered wagons. Would we find that interesting? I think so. I think that we would observe. Yeah, I think we would observe and see how they're coming along. So and plus, here's the other part. This place is a pretty beautiful planet.
Oh my God, don't go there. That was the number one message I got in all my abductions. You guys have got to grow up and take care of this planet.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Versus what you were describing. Right?
Oh yeah,
Their planet.
the dead, dried up orange ball. So
What's the reason for the hybridization program?
oh my God, not that question again. I can't answer it. After 40 years of this, I can't answer that. I just know that I have met a lot of my hybrid children, and they're amazing. They're just intelligent and emotional and beautiful and conscious. And whether I've got, one or two theories on it. And a lot of people have the theory that, we're destroying the earth and they're our future selves, and they're trying to save what they can of our DNA to make these hybrid races to save human DNA in any way possible. I don't really feel that in my heart. When I'm with my hybrid children, it's just like a whole new world. It's like they're explorers and inventors and creators, just like you and me. They're artists, and they're taking what they find and making something better of it. So I don't really know that it's like, oh, the planet's going to die. We have to save the humans. We have to save our race by using human DNA. I've just never felt that. And I think this is what they do.
And what about the suggestions from different researchers and experiencers too as well, that it is a method of taking over, of eventually occupying this planet?
They have the technology. They could do that at any moment. I don't get that that's their agenda at all. And, I know the researchers that say that, they're here to take over. And I know the researchers that say, oh, they're all angelic. It's definitely, I don't think they're here to take over. They can go anywhere in the universe, multiple dimensions. They're not going to take us over. I had an experience after I had been impregnated. And I was really sick, and I couldn't go to work on BayWatch that day. I just laid in bed. And these beings were visiting me. And this one being came into my view, came across. It had huge eyes and looked into my soul and basically said, "You are us." And I had never felt anything that real in my life. I knew that I was them. But who are they? It was extraordinary and unforgettable.
Where are the children?
They're on motherships. They're on motherships.
Yeah, they're out there. They're not here.
Yeah, there are some that are here. Not many, because the gamut of the hybrids, like I said, some are 10% human and 90% alien, and then the opposite. So there are some who can actually be here and survive. Most not. They would be found out. I have met at least 3 or 4 with Daryl, because we hung out together for so many years. By accident, we went to Eric Erickson's restaurant on the pier in Malibu. And in those days, you had to drive up this little road and get a parking ticket, right? And we were leaving, and we were going to check in the parking ticket. And I was driving, and Daryl was on the right. And both of us immediately knew the kid in the booth was a hybrid. He looked because once you've experienced that telepathy and that knowing of other races, you identify with them immediately. And Daryl grabbed my knee, and I said, "I know." And so I turned around and I handed this young man, this beautiful young man in his 20s, my parking ticket. And it was like, he's touching me and I'm touching him, and we know each other, but we don't. And we all laughed. It was okay. Gig's up, we know. So the other, and this is interesting because the other hybrid children that I've met that aren't mine on this planet were always working in a place that was 24 hours because they were night beings. Kinko's? Remember Kinko's? Used to be 24 hours.
Yeah, I do. Man, I haven't had anybody say Kinko's maybe ever on this show. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe ever. Yeah, Kinko's.
Kinko's.
Yeah.
So you have to imagine these kids, for some reason, they are trying to integrate some of them into our society. They don't have a college degree, right? They don't have experience being on Earth, period. So they get these menial jobs. These beautiful genius beings get these menial jobs that are in the middle of the night, like Kinko's or a ticket booth, or one was Jack in the Box. I was driving through a Jack in the Box one night, and I went to pay, and I just stuck my hand out, gave this young girl the money, and there was just this electrical charge between us, and we didn't say a word. This is all telepathy with them. And I looked up and smiled, and she gave me the biggest smile. And it was like, yeah, hi. Good to see you.
It's kind of like the movie They Live.
Oh, that movie was bizarre.
It's a documentary, actually. It's
right.
It's a documentary disguised as science fiction.
Yes.
And I'll tell you a crazy thing. Roddy Piper. We started talking via email and things, and I was going to have him on the show, and I was so excited, and he passed away. Yeah. And
people do that. Damn it.
Just crushed me. Just crushed me. I was that close. I was such a fan of the show and him, a fan of the movie, and he had some pretty interesting takes on this entire thing, and I was very excited. And yeah, he passed away a couple of months later, and I was pretty bummed out about that. Now let's. Okay. I've got 20 questions, but I'm going to go with the first one.
Okay.
So you described the 8 to 10 foot tall energetic light beings.
Yes, light beings.
Tall grays.
Yes.
Short grays.
Yes.
All from the same planet?
I have no clue.
Yeah, you don't know?
No. I'm brought on a ship with all these human beings on tables that are all unconscious, and these beings are doing things to me. I don't know where they're from, why they're doing it. The one clue I got was Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah, right. And any indication of how many different ET races are visiting this planet, or are they the only ones?
Well, you just showed the cover of my book.
Well, your book has got 150 different species in it.
Yeah,
probably more.
Yeah, I'm sure there are thousands.
Right there, that's the answer I was looking for. Yeah. It has to be that way, Kim. It has to.
Just look at the species on planet Earth. I walked somewhere today. I saw a frog, and a little lizard, and a fly, and just gnats. A million little different species around me all day long that we don't even pay attention to. So, yeah, that's just...
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, and I'm not joking about this. I've said this so many times, but I'm just going to repeat it. The audience is going to roll their eyes and go, "Here we go again." But it's the truth. if you and I, Kim Carlsberg, Jimmy Church, get on a ship and go to a planet, and we step off and we face, a kid in a backyard, right, or whatever, and they go and they tell them, "You're not going to believe this, man. We saw some aliens last night." Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Two completely different species. One, man, she had blonde hair and look at the, and the other dude, man, was this big the thing and flabby, pasty dude with, with crazy eyes and where do you think they're definitely two different planets? They were not the same.
Yeah.
And that's and so when we hear about different. You can just go through your book and see what different witnesses and encounters and contact. It has been so varied. Well, the universe is a big place. It's ginormous.
The multiverse is huge. We have no idea how huge it is. And the longer I've been involved with all this, and all my experiences, especially in Sedona. Sedona is a vortex. It's a portal. I met a Bigfoot when I first moved there. I opened up a storefront for my UFO night vision tours, and I would go out into Bradshaw Ranch in the middle of the forest, and I had an experience early on with this being. It was all telepathic, and I could tell it was a female. I could tell she didn't trust humans. And I just love everybody and everything. And so since I was out there, every night in the forest, and I knew she was there, I didn't know who or what she was, but I felt her presence and her telepathy. And eventually she got to know me and realized I was no threat to her. And we got to the point where most of our encounters in the beginning were just telepathic. And then it became more and more physical. And at one point, when she completely trusted me, she turned out to be one of the funniest people I've ever known in my life. I mean, I can't even tell you the things she taught me and told me. And I was out in the field, and it was my ex-husband was about 6'3", maybe 6'2", 6'3", and we saw, it was dimensions merging. All of a sudden, I saw her physically at the end of this field, and I'm physically at the other end of this field. And it was, oh my God, I love you. And we ran to each other, and we grabbed each other and hugged. And I put my arms around her, and I remember she was about the height of my ex-husband. And she wasn't real hairy. She was kind of like my blonde dog. She had short, blondish, light brown hair. And when we hugged, it was like we had really accomplished something, getting to the point where a human and a Bigfoot could unite here. And it was just fantastic. So she became my best friend. So every time I was out in the field, she'd show up. I knew where she lived. I saw her tree, and and I would ask her questions like, why are you here and not with your family? She goes, you don't get it. My family's in Wyoming, but I can be there like that. She was so cute. And I took a couple out, and they smoke pot. Why not? If you're out in the middle of the forest, this is your tour. You do what you want to do. And she came through telepathically to all of us. And I think she said something about 420. Is that 420 or 421? Had something to do with marijuana.
April 20th, 420. That's pot day.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know anything about it.
I didn't either. I used to be a pothead, when I was a kid. I haven't smoked pot in 20 years. But this whole 420 thing caught me by surprise. I actually had to go and and be the square adult and like look it up. What does this mean and where does this come from? But yeah, so that 420 is pot day.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something funny about 420. The announcements are about to come out. Okay, so I'm going to leak a little information.
Oh, great.
We're taking Fade to Black is going live, and we're doing a tour next year in 2024, and touring companies involved and things and stuff. So the first date, I can't. It's already booked, it's already done, and everything. But so the tour company comes back and goes, okay, this is the location, this is what's going on, these are this, and this is I said, okay, it's on 420. 2024. I said 420. Yeah. And I said, what, pot day? The first show of the tour is on pot day.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. People are going to read into it, right? They're going to fall 420. Okay, here we go, church. Okay, all right. But I didn't do it, everybody. And when the announcement comes, and it's going to be next month. I didn't pick the date. I didn't book the date. There's no special pot meaning behind it. We're not going to smoke out, We're not gonna, it's not it. But yeah, 420. I couldn't believe. I was like, I didn't know, really. But yeah,
I had never heard of 420. And while we were out there with this young couple that was smoking pot, she came through to us, all of us, telepathically, and said, "Oh, so it's 420 here today." And I'm looking at this young couple. I said, "Did you hear that?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "What's 420?" And they laughed so hard. And so, I mean, she knows things. The Bigfoot knows more about the earth than I would ever know. And when she said, my family's in Wyoming, and they're so far away. Well, not for me. I can be there in a minute, like that. So she's obviously a dimensional jumper, right? Mm-hmm. How does she get to Wyoming to see her husband and her kids? Unless they jump dimensions. And so, so the point is, once you've had contact with ETs, you've opened a door to all kinds of other beings in the universe that you can communicate with. And that was the best part of my abductions, meeting Big Girl, the Bigfoot, who became my best friend. If I had not been abducted, had I not been doing UFO tours in Sedona, I would have never met her. And she just made a big, huge impact in my life and my heart. And so
a few months ago, you're going to love this. I go to Sedona, and we go up to the airport, right up on the cliff, sure. and so we're up there, and I was with Adrian. Okay, so Adrian and we drove across the desert from LA. We drive to Sedona, and it was a working trip, right? Okay, so anyway, so we get to Sedona, we go up to the airport, and as I live and breathe, we saw a lot of stuff, night vision.
Oh my God, that parking lot at the airport, I've had so many.
It's crazy town. It's crazy town. But listen to this. Well, you've probably seen the same thing, but this is what happened. We get there. We just get there. And we're just kind of getting situated and just kind of standing there for a second. And man, as I live and breathe, this is what happens. From behind us, okay, so we're looking over Sedona, okay, right, on the edge of the cliff.
I know that.
And yeah, it's beautiful, and I'm kind of taking it all in. I'm like, wow, what a beautiful night. This is great. This is cool. And I just kind of turn around and face the runway, right, the airport.
Sure.
And I just and right then, coming at us is this low, this light, and it's coming straight at us like this. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, check that out. And it's just right on. Frigging flying saucer. It's the only way I can. And it was white. It was white. It was low. It was a saucer, and it flew right over. And it flies over Sedona, just straight low to the ground, and goes over the trees and disappears. And I was like, huh. Wow, that was cool. We didn't see any. Well, we saw all kinds of things, but nothing like that for the rest. But yeah, Sedona.
Yes,
I don't. I don't have another way to describe it than just what I just said. As crazy as it sounds.
Portal. It's a portal, and when I moved there, I started having contact with my adult hybrid children all the time. When I left, it stopped. So it's been years since I've really, really connected with my hybrid kids, because I'm in Kansas City now. There's no consciousness in Kansas City. I'm sorry. There's just, it's not there. And it's not a portal. And it's a city. So, Sedona is a dark sky city. They don't allow lighting. I don't know if you noticed, all the businesses have to have shields over their lights. And it keeps that beautiful Arizona sky, where you can see millions of stars. There's no light pollution. So even that alone is amazing. But the fact that it is a portal and beings are constantly coming in and out and living there it's truly amazing.
Why do you think, when was your last contact or abduction experience?
I'd say 6 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Still fairly recent.
Yeah, not too far. Not too far back. And they started when I was in my late 20s. And I'm not even going to tell you how old I am, but they continued for many, many decades. And Sedona's a portal, and LA is a portal. And I lived in Channel Islands, and I don't know if you know about I'm sure you do, the underwater bases behind, Catalina. Preston Dennett. Preston has written many books. That's his deal about the Channel Islands underground UFO bases. So that's where most of my contacts happened. I mean, they started abducting me in Malibu.
Yeah. Well, when I first discovered the Malibu underwater base and that whole thing, I had ABC News at my house and everything else, and that was, I think that was 2013, 2014, 2013, and looking at those images. And going out, and I've done TV shows and movie and everything that I've done over that. And I didn't expect it. I didn't know. I just did what I did and published it and spoke about it. And then, that thing just blew up. Yeah. But in doing the research about that, then Preston Dennett reaches out and others, Lee Spiegel, who passed away today, he covered it in the Huffington Post immediately. I turned around and did something that, I do this, but I did it because of what I was going through with that. And I started to research the Malibu area. And I was contacted by hundreds and hundreds of people that were aware of the press coverage that was happening with that, and of course my name, and then my email and my website, and I started researching this and found out that I would say that by and large most people out there in Malibu are used to it now. Yeah. That and I tell people this all the time, you can go to Joshua Tree if you want to see something. You can go to Sedona if you want to see something. Go to Washington, go to Oregon, go to Mount Shasta. You're going to go see something. Go out in the deserts of New Mexico or Colorado. You're going to see something. But if you want to guarantee, go to PCH. PCH, man.
I know.
There's no reason to drive to Arizona.
Yeah.
Go to Zuma Beach.
Topanga Canyon.
Yeah, Topanga Canyon.
Yeah. Channel Islands. Malibu.
And you mentioned Daryl Anka earlier and Bashar. Now, I've been hosting Daryl seminars lately, and so and it's a great experience. And I've only known Daryl for maybe 7 or 8 years. Not you go way back.
Yeah.
But what is really interesting about Daryl and your experiences are that these are overpopulated areas.
One of the biggest cities in the world, LA.
And Daryl, when he talks about the experience, because I lived in Sherman Oaks, for almost 20 years.
You did.
And I did. So, yeah, well, him too. Well,
yeah,
that's my point.
I know he did.
Yeah. Can I finish, Kim? Is it okay if I finish? Is that he tells his story about coming down the 405, which when you live in that area, you've done this a zillion times. And when you come down the 405 and you're looking at the valley and it's majestic and it's beautiful and it's wide open and you're up really high, you look down at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, you see the Radisson Hotel, which is now the Marriott, and you see the Imperial Bank building, which is now called something else. But back then, right, that little cluster of where the 405 and the 101 meet, right? And you see that, and it's beautiful. And that's he said, he's coming over the hill, and there's a black triangle right there above the hotel at that intersection, and that was his first sighting.
We're talking about the 70s.
Yeah, the 70s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people need to get a grip. This doesn't happen in this. Well, it does, but it's not always in the swamps of Louisiana.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Malibu.
it's not only tin hat people. I worked my way through 8 years of college. It's not like, I was a person. And this happened to me, and I thought, oh, no, this only happens to farmers or something. After I was like, no, this happens to everybody, everywhere. So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And why do you think the direct contact stopped in the abductions?
I learned how to make them stop through Daryl and Bashar. I got to the point where I let it go on long enough that I had enough information. I knew what they were doing, and I didn't need to suffer anymore. I was like, okay, I know what you're doing. You've got my eggs. You've got my kids. You've got my grandkids, whatever. I'm done. You don't get to experiment on me anymore. And I started fighting with them on the craft every time they took me. And then they would, they would try to wipe my memory. I said, no, I'm going to remember this. No, I'm going to remember this. You can't control me anymore. And then I had a really bad abduction one night. I was living in Channel Islands. Oxnard. Yeah, Channel Islands.
Same area, right?
Yeah, on the beach, couple houses back from the beach. And I had a horrible, every time I had an abduction by the ETs, regularly, the next night, I would be abducted by the Black Ops. And they would want to know. They always knew when I was being abducted. Why would they even ask me these questions? They'd say, well, what did they do to you? What did you learn? Did you see the propulsion system? I mean, it was just an ongoing onslaught. Abduction, Black Ops. Abduction, Black Ops. My entire life. So it got to the point where I said, I had this bad ET abduction. Next night, a really bad Black Ops abduction. And I called Daryl, and Daryl's my best friend. And, he's a channel. And you don't use people for what they have. If they're, you love them. I try to never burden him with anything. But that night, I had to call him. I said, Daryl, I have to see you. I have to see Bashar. I can't take anymore. I can't kill myself because they're on the other side. They're waiting in that other dimension where my spirit's going to go when I die. I don't want to see them over there. I can't live. I can't kill myself. I have to have some help. He said, I'll be there tomorrow at noon or whatever. He shows up at my house, and he takes he takes two chairs, my kitchen chairs, and pushes them together. Daryl sits down in one, I sit down in the other. Our knees are touching. We're facing each other.
Mhm.
Our knees are touching. He went into trance, and Bashar came through. And Bashar had tried to help me many times over the years, but nothing ever worked. And so, but this time, I think my intention was so strong that it just broke through all that. So Bashar came through, and he gave me a mantra. He said, I'm going to give you this mantra. And he said, I don't know if it's going to work. He said, but you're going to, if it does, you have to say this mantra every night for the rest of your life. And it's about a 15-minute, recitation. And I said, okay, definitely. I'll do anything to stop the abductions. If you want me to do this standing upside down, I'll do it. So Bashar went away. Daryl came back to being Daryl. And we both were different people. He looked at me and he said, I don't feel like the same person. And I said, I don't either. So we took a walk on the beach, and I did the mantra for like 3 or 4 nights. First time in my life that they didn't come after me within 3 days. So it was, oh my goodness, I'm healed. I'm healed. And then I stopped doing the mantra. They showed up the very next night. So I started doing that mantra every day. And months go by, and the abductions stopped. And then I thought, okay, I'm healed. They can't do anything to me anymore. Stopped doing the mantra. 3 months later, guess who shows up in my bedroom? And I was so angry. And I said, blah, blah, blah. Here's the mantra. You can't touch me. I did that mantra every night for 5 years. And after 5 years, they didn't touch me. And after 5 years, I decided I was going to test it again. And I stopped doing it for 1 night. They didn't show up. 2 nights, they didn't show up. A week, they didn't show up. A month, they didn't show up. So it stopped the abductions. Now, this is the interesting thing. I never asked Bashar why, how it worked, until 20 years later. And then one night, Daryl was around, and I said, I have to ask Bashar a question. Why did that work? Why did that little mantra stop the abductions? And he said, because it changed your frequency.
Mm.
And he said, they couldn't find you anymore because you weren't in their reality.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. You know, what is, we're at the end of the show, and I want to thank you before I forget to thank you, before we get to the end. Fascinating conversation. I can't wait to hang out with you and take things further and of course have you back on the show and all of that. And there's some other things that we're working on, and it's all exciting stuff. But isn't it fascinating to watch? Most people don't see this, okay? To watch Daryl go from Daryl to channeling Bashar. This thing. I remember the first time, this was probably 6 years ago, and Daryl and I are backstage. We've got 1,000 people waiting out front, right?
Yep.
And it's just Daryl and I. We're by ourselves. And, it's all good. Everything's fine, And he goes, okay, all right. Give me a second. All right. Let's go. And I walked out on stage and I do the intro, blah, 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 I'm being Jimmy Church and, whatever. And I watch and I see this. The reality has shifted. It's not Daryl. Right? It's not there. It's like the craziest thing. And when you see it, like you're sitting there with your knees touching, mm-hmm. and it's the reality shifts, right? It's not Daryl anymore. It's crazy, isn't it, to see it go down? It is. I had dinner with Daryl last night. And did you really? Yeah. Okay. Oh, it was so beautiful. Did you tell him you were going to be on the show tonight? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was just so excited to be with him. And, yeah, it's so cool. So cool. So yeah. Continue. You had dinner. Yeah, I had dinner, and I brought up the subject, and I said, because I've known Daryl, 30 years, best friend, and Bashar is also my best friend. I know Daryl, I know Bashar, and I know the blending in between. So when Daryl starts to speak, like last night, I had another friend show up for dessert at this Shutters on the beach and by the pier. It was beautiful. So she was asking Daryl questions, that I've known the answers to forever. So I was just let her ask him. He gets a lot of money for an hour, to talk to people, and let her have it because she's a good friend. So she kept asking all these questions, and I saw the phasing when he was presented with a certain kind of question. I saw Bashar come in, and then and Daryl leave or go aside, and then another kind of question, which was Daryl didn't need Bashar to answer that. Bashar would back off, and Daryl would come in. And I've known them both for so long. I know every nuance of their dance that they do, and I channeled for years too. Sean Randall? I do. Yeah, she was awesome. Yeah. The before we wrap, this was one of. Okay, so we do a Daryl Bashar thing. Yeah. And I always ask the first question, right? Okay. So it's an honor and a privilege to do that, but I'm the host and I can do what I want. And so I do, right? And I try to be, something smart, something intelligent, maybe a little witty. Bashar's a funny dude and hysterical. Hysterical. And so I want to get some wit out of Bashar. Anyway, so it's 3 hours later. We're done, and Daryl and I meet each other. We're alone in the hallway. Okay, we're alone. There's nobody around us, and he goes, "Man, Jimmy, man, thanks." And that was awesome. I said, "What'd you think of the question?" And he goes, "What was it?" Yeah, he does. Right. And he's looking in my eyeballs. Yeah, and goes, "What was the question?" Yeah, he's gone. Yeah. Are you messing with me right now? And he goes, "Jimmy, just tell me what the question was. I'm interested. I want to know." I know. And that's what I was like, man, that was my gut check. That was my reality check with this whole thing. It was it's a real eye opener. And he had no clue what I was talking about. I just changed the subject. Exactly. He goes away and he doesn't have conscious memory of much of it. So last night, just last thing that happened, he was driving me back to the hotel, and I was saying, he said something about, why am I so weird? I said, what do you mean weird? Because I have two people in me. I said, we all have two people in us. You just happen to let it out. And I said, if we go to, there's got to be other planets and dimensions where
people are just not one entity. They've got different aspects of themselves that, materialize or personalize into different parts of them. And maybe that's what multiple personality thing is. And I just think I think it's normal because I've grown up with it. And I don't see why, after all these years, he still thinks he's weird, but he's not weird. He's the best. So
that is just so intelligent. So, and we've got to wrap the show. I'm already off of the network, but
and we never got to talk about Art Center.
I thought about that like 15 minutes ago.
No, that's okay.
I thought about that 15 minutes ago. I remember this was probably around 2008 or so. I get a tape. I've talked to Daryl about this, and he sort of remembers. But I get a tape. I get a recording, and I get it on CD, and it's Bashar on time travel.
Yep.
And I have since gone and I've tried to locate it on the internet. I think I found it once and then it disappeared. But it was like 15 minutes. It was a 15-minute thing, Bashar and time travel. And after hearing that, I went and chased Daryl down and chased this whole thing down, and I wanted to get more answers on that. But the point being, it was a take on time travel that I had never heard before. I thought that I'd heard it all, right? And that was my first exposure to this, and it was a fascinating presentation. I still have it. So, Kim, thank you so much.
Send me a link.
When I find it, where can everybody reach out to you?
I'm on Facebook, Kim Carlsberg, and I have a website, kimcarlsbergbio.com. And I'm not out there much after COVID. I kind of disappeared like most people, but things are really picking up now. So probably have to make another website or something. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter. I'm just I'm not the social media girl, but I am on Facebook. So
okay, very good. And I'll talk to you this weekend. But excited to have you with us at Stairway to the Stars in November. And for everybody, Kim said there's going to be some of these there. So, like I said, that's worth the ticket of admission right there. Kim Carlsberg, I know we waited 10 years for this. This was awesome. Thank you so much. And enjoy your stay, and then have a safe trip back home.
Same to you.
I'll talk to you.
Much love. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, right back at you, Kim. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Safe travels back home. This is Fade to Black. Thank you, Kim. And we just went 5 minutes over, and there you go. So let me wrap this. And as everybody knows, I am heading to the UK. There's only going to be a few days off for Fade to Black. So no reason to freak out about all of that. We'll be back on the air a week from Tuesday. All right. So it's not that big of a deal. I know you feel like you're going to miss me. You're not. Take a week off. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Everybody have a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. All right. I'm headed over to Manchester. All right, you guys behave while I'm gone, and I'll see you when I get back. I'll post. I'll do all of that stuff. Until then, be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.